You're listening to the True Crime Witch podcast, the podcast that takes you into everything murderous, mysterious, and downright macabre. I'm your host Emma, and you're listening to episode 4 of the Doe Diaries, a series where I look at every Doe case solved in 2019. Before we jump into the episode, I'd like to make a disclaimer that the True Crime Witch podcast covers topics such as rape, murder, crimes against children, and other sensitive topics. This podcast won't be for everyone, and your discretion is advised. This is episode 4 of the Doe Diaries, the Fly Creek Jane Doe.
Colombian newspaper archives from February 1980 show a father and son were panning for gold along Fly Creek near Amboy, Washington, when they found bones and called 911.
That area still is very rural today, but back in 1980, it still is a smaller area. So for somebody to go missing, generally the local area, even outside of missings from Portland, were documented pretty decently. So it was big news at that time.
The news said the remains were of a teenage girl who'd been killed by homicidal violence. Over the years, investigators made facial reconstructions, but weren't able to ID the remains.
To remain a Jane Doe for 40 years.
Fast forward to this year.
Vancouver, Washington is the 4th largest city in Washington state and home to the Cascade Mountain Range that provides beautiful scenery and a high quality of life for those choosing to live out there. Many residents will describe Vancouver as, quote, having one foot in the country and one foot in suburbia, and where else would be better to start and raise a family. On January 24th, 1980, Jack D Bannister and his son Jack P Bannister planned on spending some quality father-son time together, searching for gold along the Fly Creek, which is close to Canyon Creek in Vancouver, Washington. They found much more than gold that brisk February day when they came across the skeletal remains of a teenage girl, minus her torso and hands. Clark County investigators were called out to recover the skeletal remains, and they were taken to the office of Coroner Arch Hamilton. What Dr. Hamilton was able to determine was that the skeleton was female and aged anywhere between 13 and 18 years old, but she was most likely between 15 and 16 years old. According to Detective Lindsay Schultz of the Clark County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Department, all the police knew that Fly Creek Jane Doe had died from homicidal violence, based on trauma that she had suffered to her skeleton, and the cause of the trauma could not be determined. The initial thoughts by forensic anthropological experts were that Fly Creek Jane Doe could have been of Native American or Hispanic descent, based on the size and shape of her skull. According to Unidentified Wikia, they also determined that she might have played sports in life due to the strong neck muscles that she had developed. I am not sure how they were able to determine this if her remains were skeletal, unless they weren't fully skeletal. I'm not sure, I'm just giving you the information that the articles gave me. Later analysis by Parabon Nanolabs found that Fly Creek Doe was in fact of white European descent and not Native American or Hispanic. This didn't matter too much in terms of composite sketches, as the one made by FBI agents in 1980 was sadly lost and we've never been able to recover it. A new composite sketch wasn't created for Fly Creek Jane Doe until 2005, when NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, decided to step in and aid in her investigation. A 3D render of Fly Creek Jane Doe's skull was created by NCMEC to give an almost picture-perfect reconstruction, and you can see this image over on my Instagram, which is just at True Crime Witch Podcast. In 2019, the Clark County detectives were struggling to make any further developments in the Fly Creek Jane Doe case. That's when they made a last-ditch attempt and reached out to Parabon Nanolabs, as mentioned above, to complete a snapshot DNA phenotype of our doe. Detective Lindsay Schultz of the Clark County Sheriff's Office told NCMEC, "With genetic genealogy, this was the last effort that we could control. This was something we could do and not wait on others to come looking for her." According to an article written by News Radio 1190 KEX in October 2019, Phenotyping is used to predict the physical characteristics of a person, such as ethnicity, eye colour, hair colour, face shape, and whether they have freckles, as well as providing an insight into family lineage and ancestry. From there, forensic genealogical investigators can look into all avenues of family trees and then look deeper into the dynamics of those families. Once the phenotyping analysis has been completed, Parabon Nanolabs submitted Fly Creek Jane Doe's DNA to what is only mentioned as a public genetic genealogy database in the article. However, it would be pretty safe to assume that they're talking about GED Match or GEDmatch, Ancestry, or 23andMe. I know they're quite popular ancestry websites. After countless hours of investigation, family trees, public records, and other documents, investigators were left with one name: Sandy Morden.
She was known only as Fly Creek Jane Doe for 4 decades. Today, she has her name back. Detectives revealed the woman whose remains were found in a rural Clark County dumping area in 1980. Her name is Sandra Morden. She was born in 1962, and investigators believe she was killed sometime in the late 1970s.
In their investigation, Clark County had reached out to a cousin of the Morden family, who had revealed that Sandy had been missing since the 1970s, and provided photographs along with other valuable information. They didn't just provide photographs and mementos, they provided a DNA sample which confirmed the link between Fly Creek Jane Doe and the Morden family. Sandra Morden, or Sandy as she was known to friends and loved ones, was born in 1962. I was unable to find an exact date of birth, but perhaps this will come to light as Sandy's case develops. Sandy was born to Andy and Irene Morden, with Andy being a Marine Corps veteran from the Korean War, and he worked on tugboats on the Willamette and Columbia Rivers. The Morden family originally settled in San Francisco Bay, however moved to Portland, Oregon when Sandy was still only young. An exact date of the move isn't known, but we can only assume that Sandy was still young because she attended Harrison Park Middle School and Wilson High School, which are both in Portland. According to the Clark County Sheriff's Office, there are a lot of blanks that they would like help on filling in. What we do know is that Irene and Andy got divorced in the early 1970s, which left Sandy in the custody of Andy. Detective Schultz mentioned in an article for the Oregon Live posted on October 30th, 2019, that Sandy was a, quote, latchkey kid, mostly unsupervised, as her dad, Andy, worked away on tugboats for long periods of time. She goes on to say that in Morden family law, quote, Dad believed that she was with her mum. He came home after an extended stretch of work and she was gone. He had suspicions that she may have run off with Mum. We don't know for certain, end quote. We know that there is no record of an official missing persons report being filed with the police, and like the statement above suggests, everyone simply thought that Sandy had gone to live with her mother in San Francisco and just didn't want to be contacted. In Sandy's case, there are so many unknowns. We don't really know much about her or her killer at all, which is an incredible shame because it makes this case so hard to solve. Detective Schultz is appealing for anyone with information about the life of Sandy Morden or her family to please get in touch. Sadly, Irene Morden passed away in San Francisco in 1988, with Andy passing away in 1999 without ever knowing what became of their Sandy. One of the last public records we have of Sandy is a birthday message that was posted in the Oregonian's classified section on April 29, 1977. It was a message that read, Sandra Renee Morden, happy 15th birthday, love always, Mom. This is about the time that Sandra disappeared, but it's very clear to see that despite tricky circumstances, she was very loved. Anyone who might have any information about the Mordens, about Sandy, or about who Sandy's killer is urged to contact Lindsay Schultz at the Clark County Sheriff's Office. Detective Lindsay Schultz's email is lindsay.schultz, and her first name is spelled Lindsay .Schultz, which is SCHULTS, at clark.wa.gov, or you can call the Clark County Sheriff's Office at 360-397-2036. That was today's episode, which is episode 4 of the Doe Diaries. Thank you for joining me. If you want to keep up with me on social media, I'm on Twitter, it's just at True Crime Witch. Instagram is at True Crime Witch Podcast. You can find me on Facebook, just search for the True Crime Witch Podcast. And you can also find me on Patreon to gain exclusive access, early access to episodes, and some exclusive content, as well as some really cool holographic stickers. So, until next time, stay safe and stay spooky.